All right, welcome everybody to the Summer Blockbuster Review. I am your host, Harry, aka the Mind of Cube, and welcome my co-host, Richard Optimus 124 Brown. How are you doing today, sir?
Doing quite well, sir. How about yourself?
I'm doing well. I'm doing well. So today is our most anticipated review of the
Right,
summer.
right,
We
right.
finally got a chance to watch Transformers, the fourth installment, Age of Extinction. And Richard, as usual, I'm going to let you go off first and tell the people what you thought about the movie. Go ahead, sir.
All right. So for starters, I'm gonna say this. I like the movie. I know critically it's been basically panned, but I liked it, and I'm gonna tell the world why I like it. Primarily, it's because the things that we've asked for in the last three movies have basically been addressed. Now, like the Autobots had characterizations, they had personalities. Whenever there were things that went wrong, it was visibly shown. Whereas in Dark of the Moon, characters, were basically extinguished, and there was no reference to it at all. So those things were addressed in the movie. The human story was bearable. The plot was functional. The thing I would say about this movie that, and I could totally understand why someone would not like this movie. I can't say it's the worst. People are saying it's the worst movie all the time, and I can't even fathom as to why. But I will say that the biggest critical flaw, and now this is unanimous, is that movie is way too long. Like it easily could be cut down by about 30 minutes, hands down. But for me, as a action movie, for what I got, for what I paid for it, I did. This is the only movie this summer that I actually paid for the RPX screening of it. So I spent a good old 14.50 to go see this movie, and actually four times because I paid for my girlfriend and my brothers to go see it, and I felt, at least for my ticket, I felt like I got my money's worth. At least with the screen that I went to, it was actually everybody actually applauded at the very end of the movie. Like I said, I do have some issues other with the editing. That was a little much because I think Michael Bay either needs to fire his editor or listen to him. One or the other has to happen because that movie easily could have been about 30 minutes shorter. But other than that, it was more action. The crappy humor, the sexualized racial stereotype things, you tone that down a good bit. The biggest issue I would say has to be the editing, and there's one other thing I want to go into about the drones that I really couldn't stand. But other than that, I enjoyed it. Would I actually see it again? Yeah, I'd go see it again. It's just that the fact that during that second act, it lulls really, really bad. Other than that, I mean, the first hour and a half of it, I thought it was paced fairly well. It's just once you got to that second act where they try to do, I guess, that point where all movies have to have some sort of exposition. That's where where I think the movie actually lost its audience. Because once it got there, because you had like action scene after action scene, and things just kept going and rolling and rolling and rolling, and then you kind of got to a stopping point where you had to explain a whole bunch of stuff, and then it just kind of died down. Mark Wahlberg did a great job in the movie. I think he was, out of all the human characters, to stand out. The daughter and her boyfriend, they could have. I wish they would have died. So I don't know if that's considered a spoiler or not, but I wish they would have. The other three human characters, um, Titus Welliver's character, Kelsey Grammer, and Stanley Tucci, they honestly should have been more fleshed out. If they were, I think they would have brought a little more depth to the movie. But as far as in comparison between this movie and the other three, the human character who's actually a part of the story actually did something. Whereas, all you have is, what's the dude's name? Shia LaBeouf's character. All he would ever do is just yell Bumblebee and Optimus, and that was pretty much all that happened. Like he was basically the male damsel in distress in the movie. Whereas Mark Wahlberg's character actually picked up a gun and shot stuff and actually played out. Uh, and so mechanically, I think the movie was functional. It's just for me the one thing that I would say, and where I think a lot of critics are saying that the issue with the movie is the fact that it is way too long. Like if the movie would have been down to the original running time of what I heard about, 2 hours and 7 minutes, it probably would have been awesome. But I can't say that it's awesome. I liked it, but I can't say that it's like, oh my goodness, it's the greatest thing in the summer, or it's the worst thing in the summer. I would have to say I did enjoy it. I would give it definitely a solid rating, but the editing is really, there needs to be like a true editor's cut of this movie in order to really give it some gravitas.
Yeah,
So
okay, so, yeah, you addressed one of the major issues I had with the movie, because at first thought of watching this movie, I was thinking, am I watching the exclusive director's cut Blu-ray? Because I'm in the same boat with you. It wasn't entirely too long, so it'd be kind of interesting to see later on if they release this movie again shorter, much better version of it. And
right,
I'm in the same boat with you when it comes down to this movie. It was too long. Mark Wahlberg was actually enjoyable to watch in this movie compared to some of his other films that we've seen in the past. The robots were actually explained why they were knocked off instead of just random killings of
right,
robots. The human story actually mattered this time around versus you have to have humans in the movie because it's on planet Earth. The the story, however, in a whole, I could have done without some of the elements of the story, as you mentioned, explaining the secret government agent. No, I'm sorry, it wasn't the secret government agent. It was the CIA, but the group within the CIA being explaining what they were doing, why they were out there doing their mission. Could have done without that. And like you mentioned, just that part just lulls along in the story. You could have
right.
done without that. And it was a couple of functional things in the movie that I'm not going to say now. I'm going to say that for our spoiler part that I was thinking that really you explained it that way. And we already got a group of questions going on right now that I will address. Thank you for
Oh
having
wow,
the
you actually
questions.
got questions this go around. That's what's up,
Yeah,
man.
yeah, questions are coming in. Yeah, they are coming in. So please keep sending them. We're going to get to all of them. We're going to run a little bit long. And to answer one of the questions, it was, I'm late. How long is this film? Well, the film is 2 hours and 45 minutes. It is
Yeah,
that long. Now, it's not like a 2 hour and 45 Dark Knight type movie because the
yeah,
Dark Knight, when you get out of that movie and you look at your watch, you're like, this movie was almost 3 hours long. Because the Dark Knight was continuously good the entire movie. With this Transformers movie, you feel every 2 hours and 45 minutes. You get lost in some of the elongated action
right,
sequences, but when it starts to slow down again, you're just like, okay, bring on the robots, bring on the
right.
robots. So you really do feel that in this movie. And there are some more questions. I'm not, because I know another question was asked, but it's really a spoiler question. I will get to it, so I can't say it now, but I will get to that later on. And I'm going back to my original when I was talking about the movie. The CGI is phenomenal in this movie.
You know
There's
what? I don't want to cut you off, but that's one of the things I've read about reviews. They said that the CGI was terrible. I don't know what movie they're watching, because to me, that is
yeah,
probably, that has been like that. If there was one thing about this movie to actually say that is impressive, it is the fact that the optical compositing of that movie is spot on. There's one element of the CGI that I did not care for, and this deals with the mechanics behind the drones. But other than that, man, I can't. I I'll let you finish, but that was one thing where I was reading reviews and they were saying that CGI was terrible. I'm like, what movie were y'all watching? Because I mean, that's some of the best I've seen probably all year.
yeah, and from my Maleficent review was that I'm looking for points where you can obviously point and say, yeah, that's CGI. I can tell that's fake. Now, granted, they don't tear up Hong Kong. They don't tear up Chicago. You
Yeah,
know that
you know.
giant autonomous robots don't really exist. But watching this movie, you're sitting down and you're going, what? This is probably real. I really believe that a semi truck is going to stand up and transform one of these days. That's how good
Yeah,
it looked.
right.
Yeah, it looked phenomenally good. And when I was talking to you earlier this week about this movie, I mentioned that I want to tell you about my ticket purchasing fiasco. And after I go through this, we'll go into the spoiler alert. So
Okay.
to recap the beginning of the show, both of us like the movie. There's just some elements that our nerd will
Right.
explain later on in the spoiler
Yeah.
that why this movie has some flaws to it. But I got an offer from Regal and from AMC called the Super Ticket. I don't know if you ever heard of it.
I've heard of it, yes, sir.
Okay, now I've been offered the super ticket on several other movies that I was like, yeah, there's no way I'm gonna spend that much for.
It's
or
$30 to see a movie, right? Something like that,
yeah,
right?
yeah, it's $30 to see a movie, basically, and they give you some other stuff. Like I got a super ticket for World War Z. I got a super ticket for some like teeny bopper vampire movie that flopped. I got a super ticket offer for another movie that I cannot remember right now. But basically, what a super ticket is, people, is that yeah, and he's laughing because he knows what one is.
I know
Is that
exactly what it is. I'm moving the laptop real quick.
yeah, you buy you buy your regular ticket price. Mind you, I'm already paying for the IMAX 3D version of this film, so
Right.
I'm already out $15. No, $13. I'm sorry, $13. Because I went early in the morning. So, and then the super ticket includes some type of other giveaways to make you want to spend about $30 for the movie. And what it was a digital copy of Age of Extinction and another digital copy of one of the previous three Transformer
Yeah,
movies.
and it's one of. It's not like you pick.
Yeah.
That's what hurts.
And so I'm thinking, okay, I have a 66% chance that I don't get one of the movies that I already own on a digital copy, which I own Dark of the Moon. So I'm thinking, okay, this is a good choice because I'll probably watch the hell out of Age of Extinction over and over and over again.
Yeah.
Little did I know, once I purchased the super ticket, you don't get Age of Extinction until 2 weeks before its Blu-ray
Oh
release.
yeah. Yeah.
And
Yep.
then I got Revenge of the Fallen as
Oh
my one
God.
of.
Oh man.
Yeah, so I was like, I can't believe what just happened. I thought that I was going to buy the movie, and then after it leaves theater or after a grace period, that I would have early access to Age of Extinction
Well,
well
technically you
before the
do.
DVD. Yeah, technically, yes, Richard is correct. Technically,
Technically
I
you do.
do have early access to the movie. Now, granted, will I remember 2 weeks before the movie gets released on DVD that I can watch it? No. I'll
Probably not.
probably remember the week before, actually probably the Sunday before when they're advertising it, that, oh, wow, I have a digital copy of the movie, let me watch it again.
Right.
And then here's the real kicker in the bum, right? The digital copy that you get, you have to watch it on Paramount streaming service, which you cannot stream via Google Chromecast. So I have to watch it on my tablet or on my phone.
Ooh.
I will never buy another super ticket.
Oh yeah,
That
that's it,
was
man. I'm glad you told me that because I seriously contemplated that. Really, I did.
I waffled over it for 3 days because AMC sent it to me first, and I was just like, you know what? I love that AMC theater, but I don't know if I'm gonna buy this super ticket or not because we're talking $30, and then the
Right.
AMC offer expired. Then I was like, okay, if I get another offer, just go ahead and do it, Harry. You know you're gonna watch the movie a ton of times. Just go ahead and do it. And then it
Right.
came out with Regal. I bought it. Mind you, get this. I bought it for the wrong day too. So I
Oh
had to call
man.
and convince Regal to switch it for a different day. I'm not trying to juke them or anything. Look, I just really want to see the movie on this day at this time because I don't want anybody to be in the theater with me. Can we make this
Right.
happen? And luckily they did that for me. So
That's good.
that was my ticket purchasing fiasco. So now we're going to move into the spoiler part. But first, let's answer one of the questions that first came in. And it's leading into the spoiler part. So, people, if you haven't seen the movie, now's a great time to exit out, come back and watch us later. We're about to spoil the movie for you, okay? You got it? Let me give you some time. And that's it. So, the first question that we have comes from a good old friend of ours. Charles Maverick Smith wants to know, how do we feel about the origins of Galvatron? And that's one of the things that happened to nitpick at me about the movie. Was thinking that if you're going to have Galvatron in the movie, there's certain things that you need to have in the movie. One major one is being Unicron. You, you can't. I felt as though
Go ahead.
that you couldn't have Galvatron without Unicron. But then watching this movie, I noticed that it borrows characters from the Armada series as well as the G1 series. So then again, something that you said a long time ago in these summer blockbuster reviews is that you have to accept these movies as a separate universe, not as a retelling of what you already know.
Right.
So my acceptance button got hit early in this movie versus I'm trying to think of the other movie that we did that was totally wrong and I still have problems over it. Gosh, I can't
Spider-Man.
remember. No, no, no.
Spider-Man?
X-Men,
Okay. Yeah. All
X-Men
right.
movie.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
got you. Yeah.
yeah. How the Silver Samurai thing. I'm still not
Oh,
hearing the I
yeah. That's
accept
right.
that.
That's right. Yeah.
Yeah. So this one I hit it a little bit sooner because it kind of makes sense the way they did it in the movie because yes, Megatron gets killed. I'm talking cartoon series now. Yes,
Right.
Megatron basically gets destroyed and killed and jettisoned into space. And as he's drifting, he's grabbed by Unicron, and Unicron creates a new body for him. So in the movie, we all know that Megatron is dead from Dark of the Moon movie, and then this secret organization, KSI or whatever it's called,
Yeah.
takes his body, deconstructs it, and makes a brand new body for him. So technically, he dies, he gets a new body, still happens. It's just that one is a human creating the body for him versus Unicron, which is a badass Decepticon or Autobot, whatever the hell you want to call him. I would have loved to have seen how they're going to portray him on the big screen because he is literally the size of a planet. So
I don't think
I
it'll
would,
happen, but I
yeah,
don't think it'll happen. But we'll
because
see.
Michael Bay already said it's not going to do any phase shifting, and in one of the cartoon series, I think it was Transformers Prime, they made Unicron a much smaller
He
character
he was
that could
the
actually stand on planet Earth, and I was totally
yeah
upset with that.
yeah. My thing with Galvatron with his origins, I mean, okay. My thing with the way that the character actually is that I think the backstory about how they created him was good. I think that was solid because
Agree,
logistically,
agree.
it made sense. It made sense. Okay, you have like I said, I wasn't looking for a retelling, so I went in and I said, okay, however they do them, I just know it's got to work. So I think the creation of the character worked. The problem with Galvatron, honestly, was the fact that he was not awesome. Galvatron really
Yes.
didn't do anything. Like
Can I
he,
pause you for a second? Can I pause you
yeah,
for a second?
yeah,
Because
yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
when I found out that they actually said the word Galvatron, I was like, okay, this dude needs to transform into a big, huge artillery cannon and blow up some buildings or some Autobots or something. And
I
then when he
mean,
transforms into a semi truck that really shot like 8 missiles, I was highly upset.
you know what? You know what? The thing with Galvatron is, and even the semi truck thing, it made sense the way that they introduced him. It made sense because okay, they wanted to have somebody who was like Optimus Prime, but not like Optimus Prime. So of course, we're not creative, so we just decided, hey, make him a truck. But the thing about Galvatron is honestly he wasn't really awesome. Like Galvatron, when he was introduced, the first thing he did in the original movies, he killed Starscream. Very
Blew him
first thing
away.
he
Clean.
did. Yeah, very first thing. It was like standard anime. I'm the awesome guy. I'm just gonna walk in, show you how awesome I am, and then basically like the trope would be almost magnificent bastard. But the thing about Galvatron was that one, he really didn't do anything. And I'll be honest, the voice work that Frank Welker did for Galvatron was impressive. Like even though he
Yeah.
only had like 3 lines in the whole movie, roughly, it was impressive. Just when Optimus told him he had no soul, and then when they did that close up of his face, and that's where like when people said the CG was bad because Galvatron's face looked like Megatron, but you could actually see like a face. Like it was, Megatron's face was like just like shards of glass. Whereas this Galvatron actually had like a real, like this character had a real face, but he didn't do anything, and that was kind of like he fought against Optimus and then just kind of like was gone, and that was the end of it. Just like if you're gonna introduce him, and he wasn't really in the trailers at all. Like Galvatron just was kind of like I knew he was there obviously, but he was just kind of in the background, or you never heard about him, or you saw him in that one trailer at the very, very beginning, and then they never really showed him again. So you think that the reveal is going to be something epic, but it kind of was like, oh, hey, I'm Galvatron. All right,
Now,
Prime. Bye.
I,
you
I
know?
thought I thought that they were like maybe as the movie played out, I thought that Galvatron was going to be one of the six changing Transformers that were introduced much later on in the
Yeah.
series, and that didn't happen. So at the end, it alludes to that Galvatron is going to seek revenge against the Autobots. So there's definitely a fifth installment still out there to be made
Yeah.
yet. So
Yeah.
that's pretty
That's
good.
we know that's coming.
Yeah, and to
Yeah.
answer another question from my sister here, let's take it back even further. I'm sorry, let's take it even further back. who or what is Galvatron? So after the
In
demise
this
of
story or in the '86 movie? Because it's two
yeah,
different.
so I'll do the '86 movie.
Okay, all right.
So after the demise of Megatron, Unicron creates Galvatron, which is a more badass version of Megatron. So
Pretty much like
that's
Megatron on steroids.
yeah, pretty much. And in this movie, Richard,
Galvatron is basically a human engineered version of a Transformer that they took and made from Megatron's essence. Like they used his Megatron, kind of hit the humans to make them, to trick them into making him a body, and with that, he created himself a new body and a new plan to be able to take out the Autobots with that, by exploding that seed MacGuffin that was in the movie. So that's pretty much it. Like Megatron really, not Megatron, Galvatron really didn't do anything. Like there wasn't really a big push to say that he really did anything. And I don't know whether or not we're going to cover this, but that was, I guess, kind of one of the other elements that kind of took away from how awesome Galvatron was, is because Galvatron was one of the human engineered drones. And the thing that annoyed me the most, and I would say I straight up hated in this movie, was the fact that the human drones didn't transform. They did like this like tornado thing, and then boom, robot mode. It wasn't like they actually transformed. It was more like a metamorphosis type thing. And the Galvatron did that. And the first one or two times you see it, it's actually pretty cool looking. But after that, you're like, when you see like a drone of 50 or 60 of them do it, it's like, all right, this is running out. Because really, we all know that it's really, that, in my opinion, I thought it was a cost-cutting strategy, because they didn't have to engineer. Because, like when you see Optimus transform or Lockdown transform, it's dramatically different. Like all the Transformers don't change the same way, but these drones, they all do. They just kind of like, it's like, ooh, tornado of metal, and then boom, robot.
And true point, because that's why I thought Galvatron was going to be a six changer, because remember when he was showing them and he made one of the elements into a beat pill and then into a pistol, I was thinking, oh, okay, great. So now Megatron can transform into whatever he wants.
Right. Yeah, and it just kind of, it was kind of wasted. Like if they would have done something like that, like if he might have started out as a truck and then became a tank or became a jet, like it just would have been pretty awesome. But it was that character was a wasted element. But I will say this, that the actual villain, and I know we didn't cover it in one of the things we like, but the actual villain himself, Lockdown was straight up magnificent. Like he was just, what I like, he kind of reminded me of the Winter Soldier in some senses, even though he taught a whole lot more than he did. Like he came in, messed stuff up, and then left. Like he literally, that's exactly, like he was almost like he was a contract killer. Like he just went out, I'm gonna do my business, and then leave. Because when that scene, when they took out Ratchet, I swear, man, I was in my seat, like, balled up. I'm like, this actually is painful looking. Like, Ratchet was just all messed up and whatever. Dude, I was like, my girl was sitting beside her, she's like, I was like, yo, you're all right? I said, yo, that actually looked painful. Because it's like, because, Ratchet was in the other movies, and then Lockdown comes, blows him up, and then he just takes his spark and walks off. He walks off, turns into a Lamborghini, and takes off. Doesn't say nothing to nobody.
Yeah.
Just leaves.
Yeah, that was kind of cold. So let's segue into another question here, and it's talking about how upset were you that Bumblebee still didn't talk naturally? And yeah, I don't think that's ever going to change. It's been in a couple of now the cartoon series now, and of course in all four of the movies. For some reason, they must have polled the general public. It doesn't include me, you, or I. So it's, I don't know why, because I grew up with Bumblebee having a voice. And the Autobots here that they had in the movie were probably some of the oddest looking Autobots I've seen, because they made them look like samurai warrior. And,
are you talking about Drift? They made Drift look like a samurai warrior. I mean, you know what? And that, some people are going to say that probably, and to answer the question, first of all, Bumblebee, honestly, him not talking, that's annoying as crap. They need you to stop that, because at the end of the first movie, he did talk. So
he did talk. He fixed his voice box. Ratchet did.
And then in this movie they don't. So I don't know if it's just one of those things like Michael Bay wants to make Bumblebee a caricature, even though he did some awesome. Bumblebee did some pretty awesome things in the movie, but if he's just making him a caricature, I'm just kind of like, they need to just kind of back that screen up on that, because I'm not really feeling Bumblebee not talking. Like, they just kind of they need to do something to explain all of a sudden him being able to talk again, and that be the end of it, because this is now getting out of hand.
Yeah, it is. It's getting way out of hand. And back to the characters, or I'm sorry, how they made the Autobots look this time. If you're a nerd like Richard and I, you know that Hound wasn't he a trailblazer with a little
He was basically a Jeep, like a military,
Jeep?
like
Yeah,
one of the standard military Humvee looking. No, he was no, not a Humvee. He was a Jeep. Like, it was
he
a
was a
Jeep.
Jeep with a big missile or an M80
Yeah, that's
machine gun
right.
in his truck bed. And in this movie, he looked like Bulkhead.
Yeah,
He
you know what? I think they should just called him Bulkhead. If they would have called him Bulkhead, that would have been better. I think
yeah.
what probably happened is in the middle of the design, they were like, well, we don't want to use Bulkhead, so we'll just call him Hound. I do like John Goodman's portrayal of Hound. I really
Yeah.
enjoyed that. Like, all of the Autobots portrayals were actually really good. It was just that, there was nothing. I guess you only had one Decepticon. Well, in Lockdown, technically, he's not a Decepticon. He even said in the movie he's not really a lead. He's not, has an alliance to neither side. But, um, one of the. It's just they gave them all personalities, and like I said, they look different because Drift. People are complaining about Drift because he's like a samurai, but if you actually know what the comic version character looks like, he's not too far. Other than the samurai helmet,
Yeah, he
the
does
way
use blades a lot
yeah,
in the
he uses
comics.
blades. So it's not like it's a terrible departure from him. I think they just kind of I think they overdid it a little bit. But,
Yeah.
all the Autobots had distinct personalities. All of them actually had distinct moments of emotion. Like, when Optimus found out that they killed Ratchet, I was like, whoa, they
I,
actually, like, made him pissed. Like, he was mad. Like, and he actually looked like he cared. Whereas in the first movie, not the first movie, in Dark of the Moon, when Ironhide went out, it was just kind of like, oh, Ironhide's dead. Cool. And then
yeah, well, you could say the same thing in the first movie when Jazz got ripped into two and they brought him back. And he's like,
yeah, yeah, and Optimus is
yeah,
holding both of his halves, like has his top half in this arm and then his bottom half in this arm, and just like he's walking up to the humans like, yeah, I got like my dead buddy right here, and yeah, we honored you with our bravery, and he's just holding him, and Jazz is kind of sitting there limp. Yeah, that was I do appreciate that they gave like they have a personality, they have like some semblance of, like they're not just machines. Like, and they even try to do that in the movie. Like, they made them more than just hunks of metal. Whereas I think that was the treatment that they were given in the previous three, is that they were just seen as they were literally just robots. Where this one, and, like I said, it's really the editing that again makes this movie not as good as it could be, is because the way things were paced and the way they kind of spaced certain scenes out. It's just that they never really focused on the things that should have been focused on and gave too much focus on the things that shouldn't have been. But yeah, I did enjoy how they actually gave them some semblance of a personality. That was one thing that was missing in the first three that I really think we got this time.
So the biggest thing that's going to grind my gears about this movie, and
Okay.
it's probably going to be about with a lot of other people too who are watching this, and I can only compare it to Godzilla that we reviewed earlier this year,
Yeah, I agree.
and
I
and
agree.
it's that you see the trailer with Grimlock and Swoops and Bug, and you're
Yeah,
thinking, oh man, the Decepticons better watch
Dinobots.
out. We got the Dinobots in this movie, and they did nothing. I mean,
Well,
they
no,
were
no,
really hung.
they did okay. You know what? Here was the thing about the Dinobots. I'm with you, because like they came in like literally the final, like the 11th hour of the movie. They came in and then they showed up and showed out. But it was the fact that they came in so late to where it was just, uh, you know, they could have been there a little bit longer or been introduced earlier, I think. Because even though I know they tried to say like it was like they were the legendary Knights of Cybertron, which is a callback to them being like part of the Lightning Strike Coalition in the comics and this, that, and the other. It's like, okay, cool, I appreciate you doing that, but they really didn't. It's like they kind of showed up in this, like, Grimlock growls at Optimus, they have a little Thor Iron Man fight, and then, he basically becomes a mount for Optimus, and they kind of, tear stuff up when they get through the city, which looked phenomenal. But again, I'm with you. They kind of just.
Another thing
I'm glad I didn't. I'm glad I didn't. I'm glad I didn't. What's the word? I wasn't expecting so much of the Dinobots, even though I know in the trailers they were amping it up as if they were like, oh, they were the greatest things since sliced bread. So like for me, I wasn't really hurt.
Richard, I was hurt dramatically. My little 8-year-old kid inside of me was crying. I didn't get a me Grimlock.
Yeah. You know what? Now that is one thing I would say that I was disappointed was that they could have at least made them say something. It's like, Optimus spoke to them in Cybertronian, and like he was like surprised that the legend actually exists, which is great. And then Optimus almost, like, if you think about that fight scene between Optimus and Grimlock, especially the robot mode part, like, if you think about that, it was almost like play for play, like an ending of a battle that Kratos does on some god in God of War. Because he's like, jumps up and he like moves out the way. It's like almost, I was like thinking quick time commands, like square, circle, X, triangle, keep hitting circle until, that's all I can think about. Then when he knocked him down and he transformed, I was like, okay. And then he just smacks him, and then that's the end of it. I was like, oh, okay, I guess that works. And I was expecting him just to say something, and I would agree. Yeah, I kind of, yeah, I would have to say, yeah, you got me on that one.
Yeah, and to get into a couple of questions here, the Dinobots did come in and do a little damage here, not answering another one that the Dinobots did nothing. No, when they were on screen and Optimus came riding in and jumped off of Grimlock's back, and Grimlock. What? He took his sword and sliced one in half, and then Grimlock impaled it with his tail and then ripped it off. I mean, the Dinobots, when they were on screen, yeah, they were pretty awesome, but they could have been on screen for just a tad bit longer.
I would say no.
They were a little bit more than horses. They were not just transportation.
Yeah. Yeah. Let's see here.
So we got a whole slew of questions that we are going to get to before.
I see that.
Before we get out of here. So, and another thing that really kind of like sits with me kind of in a bad taste is that, well, it's not a bad taste. I'm sorry. Let me take that back. A couple of the people that I went to go see the movie with were complaining about Optimus Prime flying. Now, if you got to think way back to the comic books that Optimus Prime does get a jetpack eventually.
Yeah.
And he does start flying around. But for the rocket boosters to come out of his heels or his Achilles tendon, where that would be in the robot, I don't know. It was kind of funny to me, in my opinion.
Yeah, it was one of those things, like, I guess, like you say, the I believe button. Like, you're already watching a movie that already has mechanical robots. You have mechanical robots with mechanical dinosaurs. Optimus Prime jumping up into the air and flying off. It's like, hey, I'm gonna hit that button. It's cool. This is kind of where I was at with it. So I wasn't upset when I saw it. I mean, I think that was definitely like cheesy, because it was like, okay, Optimus Prime is now Superman. All right, cool.
Okay, so now since we're talking about the end of the movie, another question that came in: how do you feel about Optimus Prime leaving Earth? I'm sorry. How do you feel about Optimus Prime leaving Earth and leaving Galvatron there? So, yeah, that's not a big problem with me. That just leaves the door open for Part 5 of Transformers, because he's probably going to go back to Cybertron, which should be a dead planet, according to this story, and find out who's sending bounty hunters after Optimus Prime to capture him.
Right.
So it's kind of interesting to see how they're going to do that. And remember, there should be some Decepticons out there still left, because
and they said that in the movie, and they actually said that in the movie too, is that there were some that were actually left in the process. So it's kind of like you see them, you know that they're there. They didn't really, because Kelsey Grammer had like the stacks of cards that he was playing with, is showing who was dead, who wasn't, and he had another sack for Decepticons that weren't there, that he didn't show, but he had them. It was available, so it was just kind of like, all right. So I mean, to say like how I felt about with him leaving, it was kind of like, I guess Optimus really didn't know he was there in the first place, so I really didn't think about it, because what happened when we know that he's out of drones because they killed them all. So it's not like the humans are going to produce anymore. As Optimus told them that, hey, they got to stop. They can't mess around with, they can't be cloning Transformers and stuff. So I don't think drones aren't a problem. So Galvatron has to somehow link up with some of his old squad and see what make it do what it do, I guess.
Yeah. So I want to take it back to what you said earlier. You went to go see the movie in the RPX format.
Right.
How do you feel about the quality of this movie in the RPX format?
To be honest, I mean, it looked great, sounded good. I didn't see it in IMAX, so I can't really say the screen was big. But I mean, it looked fantastic. It's just, I can't really say compared to anything that I've seen in IMAX, because I really can't equate it to the same thing. Like, for example, I saw The Dark Knight Rises in IMAX, and I saw Skyfall in IMAX. So those are the last two movies I actually seen. I would say that I would go see this movie in IMAX just to kind of test out, like I know you were saying, looking at an IMAX 3D. And to be real with you, to say that I saw there were enough parts in this movie, if the movie was about half an hour or 45 minutes shorter, I would probably say there might have been enough stuff to see it in IMAX. But for the most part, the stuff that was probably in the movie that made the movie drag on is probably the things that would have made 3D not necessary. Like, you'd be watching it like, oh, I'm looking into a window, and that's about as far as it goes.
Yeah, so, yeah, good point there. So, yeah, I saw it in IMAX 3D, and like I said on our last show, that this movie was shot entirely in the digital IMAX 3D cameras, and I kind of want to call BS on that, but since I'm not there in the production room, I really can't say it is fully
Right.
BS, because there were a couple scenes in the IMAX theater that it went to letterbox, and you
Ooh,
noticed when it went to letterbox. It wasn't
really?
that many scenes, but there were a couple scenes that went to letterbox. Now, I would
Wow.
say the majority of this movie, around 90%, is the full entire IMAX screen, which is
Yeah,
very
no, that's
enjoyable
terrible, man.
to watch. Even watching the human interactions, it was still the full entire screen. So it was quite amazing to watch a movie like
Wow.
that on the
That's
entire screen.
terrible, man. That's
And
terrible to hear. Wow.
yeah, with the 3D, as far as like when the robots are jumping around and doing all their action sequence, yes, some things are popping at you or coming towards you. It's mostly the depth 3D, which is the same way the Dark of the Moon was. So you really don't expect like this 3D that comes popping at you to make
Right.
you jump and move around. Like Spider-Man was probably the best. Well, the action sequence. Don't get my words twisted here. The action sequence in Spider-Man probably the best 3D action sequences that I've seen thus far. No, I take that back. Edge of Tomorrow
Yeah, I
was
remember
the
you saying that,
was the
yeah.
best. Yeah, was the best 3D action sequence I've seen this summer, still hands down. But Transformers will probably be a close second or third to it. So, what I recommend, you have to go see this movie in the IMAX 3D format to fully enjoy it. Absolutely not. If you're like me and you're purist, you want to see it the way the director intended the movie to be watched, then sure, yeah, go waste your money like I did. But you can get by one of the other cheaper formats. Like I'm
Uh,
pretty sure RPX. I've been in an RPX theater. It's people say that IMAX is bigger than RPX. It's probably by that much because
right.
RPX
That
screen is huge, and Regal advertises that RPX sounds better than the THX you're going to get in the IMAX. To be honest with you, both of them are deafening. They do sound tremendous better than any of the Dolby digital surround sound theaters that you go to. Yes, they do. But can I tell any difference between the sound of an RPX and an IMAX theater? No. So go save yourself a few bucks and see it in RPX 3D.
I saw it actually RPX standard, so that was even better. Because like for
Yeah,
me,
see,
whenever I go see a movie, I don't like to see it in 3D first, because sometimes it's like either it's too dark or you're not really focused on the actual movie, like you're focused on the spectacle of it. So I'm just kind of like, eh. I just went and saw it in the regular. I enjoyed it seeing it in that format.
yeah, and it's how should I say this? It's I think to equate it, like, did you ever see Star Trek Into the Darkness or the latest Star Trek
Yeah, yeah,
movie?
I saw it.
Yeah, seeing that one in 3D was kind of a waste. It was much better in the standard version, which is odd, in my opinion. You
Yeah,
would think it'd be.
I could see that because 3D it's still like it's blending two images on and with those glasses, and then you get that depth perception. Whereas when you're looking straight at it, it's your eyes aren't really trying to make sense
Yeah,
of it while you're
there were a
doing it. So,
lot of dark scenes in that movie, which kind of
yeah,
made the 3D painful to watch. So
right,
watching it in standard was much better. But this movie, if you like cool 3D, it's still there in this movie. Because like in Edge of Tomorrow with the ash and everything and floating around, you see that a lot in
right.
this Transformers movie. So there are some cool scenes in this movie with the 3D and the depth and how they do it. So it's a 50-50. I'm not saying like Edge of Tomorrow, I would say, yeah, you need to watch that in 3D. That's cool. This movie, no, you can get by. You can get by. So we got a ton of questions here. And how do you want to do this? You just want to just burn down the questions
Hey
one
man,
one by
whatever you
one?
want to do. I mean,
All
there,
right. All right.
there's.
So
I see the one about the ending. Yeah, I think.
okay.
Yeah.
So yeah, let's go over that one. So how many more movies can they make in this with this saga? We know the ending was in this movie. Okay, Charles, thank you for making that a tongue twister with your English language. So how many more movies do we see? Well, I do see them doing a fifth movie definitely.
No,
I can probably see a sixth movie, and that's about it.
yeah, I think at some point you're gonna have to cut. You know what? We say that now, but look at the Fast and Furious. Somehow they got 7 movies out.
You know what? And to be honest with you, the last movie, I'm still my I believe button hasn't been fully hit on that one yet.
You know,
So I think 4 to 5 is kind of the max, and this goes into another question that's on here as well, because like we know with the Avengers, we're going to get 5 Avengers movies. We know that. That's already said and done, and I feel as though okay, 5 movies is a good number to stop with when it
right?
comes to comic book movies, because when you look at these Superman movies, and they went into their fifth movie, and I was just like, gosh, this is awful. I'm talking about the Superman movies with the guy Christopher Reeves now.
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah, his movies just went down, down, and down, and then
well,
Man of Steel sort of brought it back.
right. See what the problem is that, and I think this is one of those things where the only reason why I say you're going to see 6, okay, because if you think about the way that Transformers, the first 3 were, and I know they say they're sequels. To me, I really don't think they are, because you could completely take out Revenge of the Fallen, and almost if you all you have to do is explain Megatron's reappearance and why he only has half a head, and pretty much that's all you need. Because Dark of the Moon and the first movie kind of linked together a whole lot better than the others. But if you look at it, they're actually pretty episodic. Like you don't really need to watch the other movies to figure out what happened. This movie is the only one that actually, at the end of the movie, they actually say they're setting up for something else to happen. Because
True.
Optimus said, you know what, stay away from Earth because the Creator, I'm coming for you. So, which, Optimus Prime has basically become Kratos. But, you know, that's probably the one thing about this movie that's a little bit different, is that it actually sets something up for your future iterations. I'm not saying that's a good or a bad thing. I mean, I'd like to see Transformers movies as long as I can, but the reality of it is that people get tired of I guess the same treatment of stuff, which is obviously we know that Sam Raimi got kicked out of Spider-Man because Sony pretty much didn't want him back after Spider-Man 3 after they did that thing. So I mean that's pretty much why they did it. In order to keep that license, they had to submit for a new director.
I'm
This
so mad that you remember that horrible writer's name. That guy.
it's just Sam Raimi did some awesome stuff. It's just that as a director, that Spider-Man 3 is what killed him, and that's unfortunate. But hey, that's what it is. And that's kind of what I think is going to happen here. At some point, either one or two things are going to happen. Michael Bay is going to make a lot of money off of this movie. Excuse me, not Michael Bay. Well, obviously going to get paid a lot of money, but Paramount whatever is going to make a ton of money off of this movie. So if there's not a need to stop the machine, they won't. But I think there is going to come to a point. I think once they get to 6, they're kind of going to be like, all right, we need to retire this because I hate to say it, Peter Cullen's getting old. So, and if you keep releasing the movie, Peter Cullen's got to be in his, like, getting close to his 70s. So,
whoa, you sure he's not near his 80s? I thought he was up there with Leonard Nimoy.
Oh man, you're probably right. So if you think about it, let's be real here. I mean, he's not going to be able to be Optimus Prime forever. It's just the reality of it. So I mean, I'm not. It's one of those things where I think that if we're going to keep getting them, because even though people, they could be, if you can say that a movie has been critically destroyed and still makes $100 million in a weekend, that director is obviously doing something right, so why would you change the formula? It's kind of like with Coke. When Coke made that new Coke, you saw what happened. It almost took Coca-Cola out. So, and I think that probably is what Paramount is going to be afraid of. If they keep the same director and keep the same writer and fire fire the editor, or Michael Bay listens to them, they probably could still get a pretty some semblance of a pretty solid trilogy going. Because this is, like I said, the only one that actually at the end of the movie has some sort of action item. Because, all the others, Optimus had some, like, wonderful speech about freedom and awesome. But in this movie, he had a speech where there is an action that's going to take place. He tells you at the end of the movie that he's leaving Earth to go take care of the creators, which is, something that they need to do. I know we were talking about the way things ended. And this is something I know I didn't cover because of spoilers, but there's one thing about this movie that I did appreciate in the ending, is that it kept Optimus Prime as the hero at the end of the day. Because even though at the end, Optimus was stabbed in the chest with his sword, and everybody was trying to hold Lockdown back, and they pulled the sword out, Optimus grabbed it, and then took out Lockdown. I swear to you, thunderous applause went there, because if you think about it, that was the one flaw that Iron Man 3 had in it, is that Iron Man didn't finish his villain.
Yeah.
He didn't finish his foil. And Optimus, even though, it was kind of like, it was ultimate cheese the way he did it, he still finished the fight. So whether or not, I'll say, will they do 6 movies? Yes, they're going to do 6 movies. Like, there is no, unless Michael Bay falls off the face of the earth, he decides that, hey, he wants to go ahead and be a fireworks show director. Other than that, I'm be honest with you, I don't see them not doing 6 movies. I think 6 is probably going to be their max, and then they're gonna quit it, or they're gonna start over, with something different. But do I see 6? Yes. Yeah, there's going to be 6 movies.
Yeah, I mean, at first thought when reading that question, I was thinking about Resident Evil. Like, why on earth are they still making Resident Evil movies?
They're not doing very well.
Yeah, I'm just like, who is still going to go see this crap? Because I love the video games to death, but the movies are from Planet Crapville. So obviously they got the green light to make another Resident Evil movie, and I'm pretty sure if that has a green light, Transformers has the biggest green light at Paramount Studio. Or I think Resident Evil's by Lionsgate. I don't know, but
yeah,
it's whatever. So I'm getting off subject. So let's just go on. And to get to another question that Charlie had, was talking about, could the Transformers movies be Michael Bay's Star Wars or Marvel Universe? And let's not get too crazy here.
No.
Yeah, because I mean, Star Wars had arguably 4, maybe 5 epic movies in its genre. Like right now, there's only 1 epic Transformers movie out of 4 of them. So he's already mathematically fallen off the bandwagon, and Marvel has already 3. Actually, no, the Avengers,
4.
Thor,
Avengers, Thor, Iron
Captain
Man,
America, the Iron Man, 4, So if Michael Bay is trying to compete with those 2 franchises, he's lost the battle. He compete with Fast and Furious, he can win that. Compete with Resident Evil, he can win that. So. Yeah, let's move on. And this is
that was quick.
a 2-part question from Charlie and my sister, talking about the movie was so long because they had to introduce the new human cast. And so let's go back to what we originally said. So they could have done without some of the human cast in this movie. I don't think y'all might have missed that. We've been going for quite a long time here, but that they could have done without the whole boyfriend girlfriend part
Yeah,
of this movie. That
they
there's
could
no
have
need for that. There
they could have
you have
taken
that in
that
a
and
movie to attract women probably who have nerd boyfriends like us to go see the movie. That's a useless element in this movie.
they could have
Like
taken that entire element out because if you think about even with the boyfriend, like what did he do? He drove a car and then he was just pretty much being a jerk the rest of the movie. So it
he
was just
had one good scene where he drove over somebody's face with his rally car. That's
yeah,
it.
and that was the end of it. So I mean, they could have honestly had them there, and they could have left, and they could have left Mark Wahlberg's character and him just going through the motions and stuff. They could even have kidnapped the girl. That could even been a possibility, just because that's his daughter. But they didn't have to actually. I guess that element really wasn't needed. I mean, I understand it was trying to make you understand or like Mark Wahlberg's character, but to be honest with you, I didn't think it was needed. Like I think
Yeah.
it didn't. If anything, let me say this: if anything, there was not a need to actually even have the boyfriend in the movie. The little comic relief guy, whatever his name is,
He's a
uh,
necessary evil.
he was a necessary evil because he was like the first human to die, and I was like, oh
Yeah.
man, they actually killed people in this movie. That's rough, you know?
Yeah. I mean, if you when I was watching that whole interaction with it, if they would have just taken his part out or changed it to being some guy that was a passerby and they hopped in his car to escape the family farm, that's the same story epic without the whole gas station I had her when I was in high school and blah blah
Yeah,
blah and I'm
yeah,
very protective of my little baby girl, blah blah blah. Like we already get that. That doesn't need to be explained in any movie ever. We
right,
know that a father is going to be protective of his baby
yeah,
girl. That's
right,
that's a that's a given. I don't need that explanation. So
right.
that's one of the editing flaws that we had out there. So yeah, and we got it coming in now that Peter Cullen is 68 years old, so he still has some good Optimus Prime
So
voice
you, so you're
years.
saying so we think about it. If Transformers 5 or whatever they want to call it comes out in another 2 maybe 3 years, that'll be
Hmm.
so, and then another two over these, another two or three of that. Peter Cullen will be like 70, close to three-quarters of a century old.
Yeah,
So I
he'll be
mean,
close to 80 by the time they finish the sixth movie.
yeah, and I just don't. It's going to be sad when Peter Cullen retires as Optimus Prime because he's obviously. I think it's one thing's going to happen. He's going to retire and then he's going to die, just like Charles Schultz. Because
Yeah.
like Charles Schultz announced he was going to retire, and then like 2 weeks later he was gone. And I'm not wishing that on him by no means, because I love Peter Cullen as Optimus, but it's just one of those things that I could see honestly happening. But to say he's 68, he's not going to be able to be Optimus Prime forever. They're gonna have
And
to
it's
like he's gonna have to almost be like they're gonna have to find someone almost like how Disney has like people that sound just like Mickey Mouse when we were kids. Well, obviously we know that the original voice actor isn't the same guy.
yeah. And
So
it's very funny because it's one of the things that kind of irks me with Michael Bay and how he wants to change things and how we know there are because he made Peter Cullen audition to be Optimus Prime. Uh, that's one of
which
those kind of that should be a given. If Peter Cullen is available, meaning living,
yeah, yeah,
he should be Optimus Prime.
I remember that because I remember they said he had to actually audition for that part, and it was almost like, wow, really? I mean, I'm glad he got the part, obviously, but it just kind of was like, man, that I think that the Transformers movies, in all honesty, would not work if they had somebody who was not Peter Cullen be Optimus Prime, because Peter Cullen's voice is Optimus Prime. It's just like when you look at Robert Downey Jr., you see Tony Stark.
You
You
see
don't see
Tony Stark's
anybody.
automatically. Like
Yeah,
any other movie that Robert Downey Jr. thinks, I'm thinking that's Tony Stark's.
right. So it's the same thing with Peter Cullen. Like if you had that same faceplate mask thing going on, and you had heard another voice come out of that mouth, like, nah, that's no. That's not it. Like, so I'm glad they got. That's why I'm kind of glad they got Frank Welker back in the role too, because, you know, he was, even though I know in the movie Leonard Nimoy voiced Galvatron, in the actual cartoon, Frank Welker still did the voice of Galvatron. So it was like, okay, so they got the band back together. So I was happy for that. So there was a lot of fan service, I think, in this movie, that goes that way. So hey. I
Yeah,
was.
and you know what? It's kind of. I'm glad you mentioned that because when Dark of the Moon came out, had we been doing these back when that movie came out, because I could have sworn up and down that Leonard Nimoy did Galvatron in that movie, and I'm so glad you just said that right then and there. But because I
He
knew Frank Walker was either Megatron or Galvatron in some other series, but I could have sworn for that '86 movie it was Leonard Nimoy. So yeah, that
Leonard
clears that
Nimoy
up.
was the voice, and that's what made it. That's what kind of made there was some foreshadowing with that because everybody heard that Leonard Nimoy was going to be Sentinel Prime, like, oh, well, he's probably going to be the bad guy, and we saw what happened. So yeah,
Yeah. So let's go ahead and hold on. Is there a younger dude than 20 that sounds? Okay, there is a younger dude in his 20s that sounds almost exactly like Peter. Peter, I am amazed. Unfortunately, that's a great question. That is a great question, and you are entitled to have your opinion. But like I said earlier, if your name is Peter Cullen and you are not bedridden, you're Optimus Prime. Like I will dip into my own pocket to pay your salary to voice Optimus Prime. It's
uh,
when that Metal Gear Solid came out and Kiefer Sutherland is now the voice of Solid Snake. I'm like, what? This guy,
yeah,
I forgot his name. Oh my gosh. The guy's
David
been
Hayter,
playing. Yes, he's been playing Solid Snake since the '80s. It
yeah,
doesn't work for me. It doesn't work for me. I'm hoping there's some type of cheat code that I can input in, like up, down, down, left, right, square, triangle, start, select, or option start, something to
right.
download David's voice into that Metal Gear Solid game.
they're
That's
gonna
like,
they're gonna have a DLC pack for that. I promise you.
yeah, it's you're talking about the '80s or 30 years ago. You can't change something that we're used to for 30 years by somebody else. So another good question. So let's get into the part of the show where we rank the movie, and I'm gonna go first this time. I usually let my co-host go
No,
first with
go
his
ahead, go. I'll let you go first, man.
but thank you.
No, go ahead, man.
But this movie still by far, Captain America: The Winter Soldier is still A plus material,
I
and it's
would
what
agree.
all other movies are being ranked against.
Against that movie, yeah,
Yeah, and it's so sad too.
yeah, because it was
It is
awesome. It was,
yeah, it is so sad. But yeah, that is still the best summer blockbuster thus far. So this movie here, as you can by talking through it, do we love it? No. Do we hate it? No. Are we indifferent about it? Yes. So
I can't say we. I
okay.
will disagree with you there, but go ahead.
Okay,
That might be you,
so
but
I am indifferent about the movie. There are things that I love about it. There are things that I wish would have been done better. There's nothing that I hate about this movie, so I liked it. With that being said, you would think I would give the movie a C type rating, but I'm going to bump it up into the B rating because of the special effects in this movie. There was not one point where there was any type of phase shifting. Like Grimlock and the other Dinobots were these huge, massive beings, and they transformed into huge, massive dinosaurs. So that was great. The transformation of Optimus Prime, where he stuck his arm out, and I tried to dap him up in the theater, I
you
thought
know,
was great. You
yeah,
know,
everybody was all like, "Ooh."
yeah, I thought that was great. And this, well, it drift transformed into a helicopter and
Yeah,
flew away. I thought that was amazing. So, and I forgot the other one when he jumped out of the back of the spaceship and deployed his parachutes.
yeah,
That was amazing. And you know that they're like I said earlier, you know they're not tearing up Hong Kong. It's amazing what they can do with computers today. Like, how do I build one of those, Michael Bay? Let me know, because I need that in my life to play solitaire. That computer is
right.
amazing. So the movie gets a B rating from me. If I had to put it amongst the other ones that we rated, here goes a quick rundown. Of course, Captain America: Edge of Tomorrow are still the top one and two,
Right.
with Godzilla and what is the bottom of the barrel? Oh gosh, Spider-Man. Yeah, with Spider-Man. See, I forget about Spider-Man. That's how that movie is. So the Amazing Spider-Man and Godzilla being the bottom of the barrel. So you put down in there, and I'm just going to take Maleficent and just move it along the side because it's kind of an unfair comparison.
Right.
Maleficent is a great movie. So you put Transformers right there in the middle, you make yourself a summer blockbuster sandwich, and then on your side dish, it's going to be 22 Jump Street when you want to every now and then.
Yeah. All right. All right. So I'm just gonna kind of run down my thoughts of the movie. Okay. So pros. I'm gonna go with my cons first. Let me do this. The movie is flawed, primarily because you don't know where the second act of this movie ends and the third act begins, because that's where it's painfully long. Other than that, I thought it was paced really well. The Decepticons or the drones are really just nothing but cannon Dinobot food. They're cannon fodder or Dinobot food, really. Um, that love story could have been completely left out of that movie. And, despite Mark Wahlberg's character being solid, the other two humans, like the boyfriend and his daughter, they could have been completely left out or destroyed, as far as I was concerned. And the other three human characters could have been fleshed out a little bit better, in my opinion. For the drones, that transformation thing, I hope that never comes back. I do not want that to come back at all, because it's more like they're morphing. It's like the whole Beast Machines thing, and those of you who watch that show would understand. The show was well written, it's just that they didn't transform anymore, and that was just weird. Again, I was reading my notes, it said that Irish dude, the boyfriend, I just couldn't stand him. I just wanted Prime to take his face just simply out of spite. But as far as the positives of the movie, the robots had a lot more screen time. There was definitely more action in this movie, even though I know in the second act it kind of lulled a good bit. There was just more action crammed into that movie, so they could have honestly just done a better editing job there. The darker premise of the movie and the way that the Autobots were actually hunted, like it even showed them being hunted, and that's what made it more dramatic as far as on their side of the bridge. Like, it actually showed what's happening to the Autobots, not like you hear it through Mark Wahlberg's character. Optimus Prime was pissed. Now, we all know that he's homicidal, Optimus Prime, in this movie, just because that's the way Bay wanted to have him treated. But out of all the movies, Optimus Prime in this one actually had a reason to be angry. Like, when he transforms the very first time, and he's just like, who are you, and asking questions because he's been hunted the entire time, he's just like an old dog of war that's just simply tired. Like, he's just tired of running, tired of fighting, and he's just sick of it. And then when he finds out that his crew is still being hunted, and he found Ratchet, it's just like he had a reason, he was justified in his violence. And that, I know people are like, Optimus Prime and violence still go together, but hey, at some point, you got to be like, you ain't gonna take it no more. Lockdown as a villain, definitely the best villain out of all three of the movies, because his badassery was just magnificent. Like, he just was. Human characters did something, and last but not least, out of all of the movies, I would have to say that when the robots were actually fighting each other, it honestly didn't look like junkyard sex. So I'm with you, Harry, to be honest with you. Like, it was one of those things where you had to judge it from two different ways. Like, I'm going to put it together. As a Transformers movie, as a fan, as of what we asked for in the last three movies over the past 7 years, which is scary when you think about it. But over the past 7 years, I think it did what we wanted to do. So I would give it an A for effort. However, functionally, I think if the movie was just a little more care was done in the editing department, I'd say that it would have been a much better movie. The writing, of course, everybody talks about the writing, but I'm like this: if you thought Pacific Rim's writing was awesome, and you could forgive the cheese in that movie, then you have to be forgiving here. But because I just watched Pacific Rim the other night, and I was like, if you had a problem with Transformers and you love Pacific Rim, obviously your critique and writing is just, you have an issue there. I love Pacific Rim, by the way, so I'm not trying to make it a negative. But I would
you
say,
like G Gundam?
Say what? Yeah, yes, exactly. It's like if you like Gundam or any of those shows like that, you'd have to have a love for it. But in all honesty, I give Transformers a C in that area, as it was a functional movie. If it just wasn't for that editing, it could have been so much better. So I would have to say I'm going to put it right at a B myself. Will I watch this movie again in theaters? I'm not gonna lie to you. Yeah, it's going to be the guilty pleasure of mine for the summer. I have not actually gone back and seen any movie this entire summer, but that's going to be that one, because Optimus Prime shows up and shows out whenever he's on screen. Because even that one, I know it's gonna sound, this is like the little fanboy in me, like, squealed a little bit when they were right outside the gas station, and then it was like one of the few times you actually saw Optimus Prime change back into a truck. Like he actually just backed up and turned back into the G1 mold. It was like, you couldn't do
Yeah,
nothing but like laugh
that
at it.
yeah.
So visually it was impressive. It's just the editing in that movie is really where they need to fix. If they fix the editing in that movie, I think Michael Bay wants to make a good movie. I really do, because he actually gave. It's like every time what he does is he does something right. It's almost like he takes 2 steps forward and 1 step back. Because every time it's like the movies have progressive, except for Revenge of the Fallen, that was a far step back. But for 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 going from Revenge of the Fallen to Dark of the Moon, it's like, okay, let's see where you're going. And then going from that movie to this movie, it's like, all right, see where you're going. It's just that the editing is what made it terrible. So, because if you look at all the reviews, everybody is complaining about how long it is. Even positive reviews are saying that movie is terribly long. And that's one of the things that I really think if they fix that we could actually, if they just turn the running time down, or either get a better writer or find a way to actually construct it to where the 2 hours and 45 minutes doesn't feel like 2 hours and 45 minutes, I think we'd be okay. So like I said, with you, I'm kind of where you're at. I'm gonna give it a B.
Okay, yeah, it's one of the few times that we agree on our movie ranking. I think that might be the second time, because Captain America we both said A's, and this one we both said
well,
B's.
we said that for Captain America. What was it, Edge of Tomorrow and Maleficent. So this would be the fourth one. It's just 22 Jump Street, both of us were kind of indifferent about it. It's like, God was like, I saw it, good. And then, but I think you liked Amazing Spider-Man a little bit more than I did. Cause
I did.
I forget that I saw that movie. Like, that is the one movie where I actually, like, someone's like, because whenever someone was asking about the review stuff myself, and they said, so what'd you think about Amazing Spider-Man? I said, oh man, I forgot that movie came out this year. Nah, I didn't like it.
And it gets kind of funny, because usually this is the part of the show when we talk about what we're going to watch next. And there were some awesome trailers for July, but no dates. So
just July.
It just said July 2014 at that, and I'm just like, July is Thursday, isn't it? I'm just like, no, actually, no. July is Tuesday. My bad.
I think the next movie that's probably going to be out is Rise of the Planet of the Apes. I know that one has a confirmed. I think it's either the beginning of July or the middle of July. So I'm going to have to go back, and I'm gonna go to the movie store and rent that one. Because I heard it was good. So since this is a hobby / obsession of watching movies, so I guess I have to kind of do that one. So
yeah, the Planet of the Apes, the first one with James Franco, is quite amazing. Don't get the Mark Wahlberg one. Don't. James Franco. That's who you need to see.
I watched. I didn't get it. I watched that movie before. Yeah.
So I guess so. Stay on the lookout, since we don't have any dates right now. I really can't say when the next show is going to be, because I kind of want to see that Hercules movie, because everybody told me The Legend of Hercules was just a piece of crap.
Yeah. Well, obviously we're going to have to see Hercules, and that's another one of those movies where I have this strange feeling. I know it's going to sound terrible, but with Michael Bay, it's like one of those things, like you learn to love him, because it's like he's that kid that he runs really, really fast but can't do nothing else right. This is kind of how I feel about him.
Did you just call Michael Bay Ocho Cinco?
Yeah.
He could just run straight.
Yeah, so that's the thing. I think my biggest problem with most of the reviews I've read is that most of them are negative, and it's not because of the movie. It's because they just hate Michael Bay. It's like, I hate Michael Bay, so I must hate this movie. It's not like I've only seen 1 or 2 reviewers that actually are praising the things that are good and and chastising the things that are negative. So, most of it's just, I hate Michael Bay. So I think Hercules is going to be another one of those things where it's like, we're going to see this movie. It's going to be like ultimate cheese factor of The Rock doing awesome God-like stuff. And
Can I be honest with you real quick?
Yeah.
The real reason why I want to see Hercules is because there's yet to be a movie that we just 100% slammed. And Hercules has the potential to be that movie.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure it does. I'm very confident that it's probably going to be one of those, why'd you do this? But you never know. It could actually, Edge of Tomorrow was one of those movies where I wasn't really expecting a whole lot, but when you got it, you're like, oh man, this is awesome. So I think that's the one thing about Transformers that made it a little underwhelming, is that you got it and it was like,
It's
it was
still
good.
going.
It was good. It was just it could have been just more than what we got, and it's primarily, again, it's just the straight mechanics of a movie. It's like if it was edited more concisely and they only gave you the things that you needed in order to move things to the next place, which is what most of the movie was, is like go from here to here to here to here to here, end. But they dragged that piece on so long, and that's just really where it hurt. So yeah, but will I be buying this Blu-ray and watching it the day it comes out? Yes, I will.
Yeah, 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 yeah,
I am.
yeah. I mean, Revenge of the Fallen is in my collection, and it's probably been watched once. It's
That is
just
the
there.
only, that is the only one that I would have to say I've never watched more than once. Like, I've watched it once, and like I will pop it in every once in a while when I'm feeling down and I want to see Optimus Prime kick some tail. That's pretty much the only reason I put that movie in, because I just go right to that one bookmark on my Blu-ray player and watch the forest battle,
The
and then I
Force battle, yeah,
I
that's
take it
it.
right back out. Like, that's it after that. But Dark of the Moon I can watch all the way through, and the first movie I can watch all the way through. And this one I think I could watch all the way through if I was watching with somebody else. But don't get me wrong, that whole stint in China, I'll probably fast forward through all that until it gets the stuff blown up again.
Yeah. It's like, how do I put it to you? It's like The Dark Knight Rises. I completely love that movie, and whenever I want to watch that movie, I plan the day before. Okay, I need to get all this done. If I get all this done, I can watch The Dark Knight Rises
That's
tomorrow,
right.
because
That's right.
you know that movie's 3 hours long, and it's going to take up a nice chunk of daylight. So yeah, don't try to watch The Dark Knight Rises at like 10 or 11 o'clock at night, and you got to go to work the next day. You're going to stay up the whole time, and you'll be like,
That's
oh, God,
right. That's right.
why did I do this to myself? So I kind of equate that to how this movie feels, as though it will get watched several times, but it's going to be one of those, I have to plan my day around watching this movie. So sounds like I'm kind of cutting you off, because we have run an amazing 1 hour and 11 minutes now. So this is almost twice as long. It is twice as long.
That's exactly right.
How we usually run, and I know that you're in the middle of festivities today, so
that's my girlfriend's niece. Hey.
Oh, hey. How you doing?
Yeah, she's interrupting my stilo right now.
Okay, so.
Hey. Yeah, that's what family does when they love you.
I'm just gonna go ahead and showcase my shirt.
There you go, boss.
There it is, right there.
She's fine. She's fine. Oh, she's all good.
I should have had the camera like this the whole time, so you can see the awesomeness that I'm wearing. I'm kind of upset with myself. I should have had the camera like this the whole time.
You should have.
I do apologize.
That's why I wore the fitted.
To everybody out there. Yeah.
But,
okay, so everybody, we're going to wrap the show up. For the last couple of questions that are out there, yeah, we loved it as a movie. Haha, we really don't know what to really call it, but we will be watching this again. Okay, the first friend should have died for turning them in. Yes, he should have, but he did get zapped. So
yeah, that was worth it. That was worth it.
With that. And the last question here. Will we review Guardians of the Galaxy? If you were closer, I would lay hands on you. Yes!
Of course.
That is August. So we'll have definitely a show in August. For July, stay tuned to your email mailbox. We don't have any dates yet because studios haven't given them to us. But this has been part 7. Hold on.
I think it's 7, right?
Edge of Tomorrow, Amazing Spider-Man, 22 Jump Street, Godzilla, Maleficent. Yes, this has been part 7. I should have wrote that down before counting on my fingers. But yes,
there you go.
Part 7 has been wrapped up. Galaxy of Tomorrow is a definite 8. We are going to do Hercules, because hopefully we're planning that movie to suck. And I think Dawn of Planet of the Apes is also coming out in July. We're going to do that one because the first one was phenomenal. The Enforcer is another movie that I really, really wish we had a date, because that's the next movie that I am anticipating to watch highly. That's the July release. And that one, it's kind of like a play on an older movie, The Enforcer, where the guy is one of these badass ex-military, ex-black agent who
So,
wipes out I think it was a Chinese or Serbian mob. So this one here looks like it's an older version of him. So that would be nice to
yeah.
see. So I'm rushing through everything right now. Let's go ahead and do our exit lines. Richard, go ahead and tell the people where they can find you.
Gplus.2/Optimus124, Facebook.com/Optimus124.
Okay, and everybody, you can find me right there on my Flickr address right down there. I do have private galleries that you cannot view, so if you book me, you can see the private gallery that I shoot for you. Yes, that was a shameless plug for my side
That's all right,
business.
man. You gotta do what you do, man.
You can also find me on Google Plus at The Mind of Cube. You can find me on Facebook, where I'm letting people know that I started this bow tie trend back in 2011. It was me. Watch me like TV because I'm setting trends. All right, people. I enjoy everybody for watching the show today. We had a record number of questions come in. The view counter was almost into the double digits. Thank you for watching the show live. Thank you for watching the show again on YouTube. Please, please, please keep sending your questions. I love hearing from you, and I love answering them. And please stop waiting to ask me offline questions. Well, why didn't you talk about this? Well, why didn't you talk about that? I
Yeah,
have the
yeah,
Q&A.
that's what Q&A's for.
I have Q&A in there, and then you go out and you email me these questions, or you see me in person and you ask these questions. As you can see, like only the people that I know or that are usually ask questions a lot of time, I will say your real name out there. But if you don't want me to say your name, guess what? I won't say your name. You can remain anonymous. So
Right.
ask me the questions so I can talk about them while doing the show. But thank you once again. I do appreciate y'all so much for watching. And we are out until the next show gets announced for part 8 of the Summer Blockbuster Review. Just a quick programming note to let you know that I will be shutting down my portion of it due to football season,
Okay.
because the Monday night game will be coming on during the time when I usually do these live recordings, and I love the sport of football.
I
So
understand, man. Gotta do what you gotta do.
August will probably be the last month that you see the Summer Blockbuster Review. I know that's not the end of summer. We might spickle or spat a episode in there. Just call those the original video recordings, OVRs. My real nerds get it.
I got you. I got you.
So season 1 will wrap up in August, people. Thank you so much. Stay tuned for the episode 8. Have a good one.